Today I'm going to show you how to bake artisan bread using commercial yeast. Yes, you can still make awesome bread this way. Hi, I'm Sune and I'm a food geek. Today I'm going to show you that you can make awesome artisan bread using commercial yeast. It's super simple and the results are amazing and quite comparable to the bread made using sourdough starter minus the tang. Commercial yeast contains the same kind of yeast as sourdough starter, but it's more concentrated and a more potent strain of yeast. It was invented to speed up the process of making bread, but it wasn't considered or maybe not found important enough that you lose most of the excellent taste of bread. So we're not going to be compromising the taste, and this bread will be using an overnight retard to develop excellent flavors. The yeast that we're using is SAF Instant, which is a fast rising instant yeast. You can also find it in your store as bread machine yeast. If you're new to this channel, I bake a lot of sourdough bread and I make delicious food from all over the world. If you want to see more of this content, please join me by subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any future videos. The dough that we're making today is made with only bread flour, but you can add up to 30% of any other flour that you like, be it whole grain or even gluten-free. The hydration is 75%, which is pretty high. Note that you're going to need a pretty strong bread flour with above 12.5% protein. If you don't have that available, you can lower the hydration. A good quality all-purpose flour may be able to take between 65 and 70% hydration. Follow the card above for the formula in my bread calculator. You can press the hydration button to change the hydration. You may want to scale the recipe back up to 1400 grams if you want to use the same size Bannetons as I do. The salt content is 2.2%, which is perfect to bring out the taste of the flour. The amount of instant yeast is 0.5%. That is on the low side, which is going to help us to get a very long fermentation. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a member at Patreon. You can also buy some merch or use the links in the description for tools and ingredients. Those were the words. This is the recipe.
The written recipe, the ingredients, and the amounts are linked in the description. First, mix the dough. To a medium bowl, add 788 grams of bread flour, 17 grams of salt, 4 grams of instant yeast. Mix up the dry ingredients. Then add 591 grams of water. Mix the dough with your hands until all the flour has been hydrated. Then put the dough on your kitchen counter and perform some slap and folds until the dough comes together. Then put the dough in a see-through container and level the top of the dough. Mark the top of the dough with a whiteboard marker and let the dough grow to almost 100%. When my dough was finished proofing, this is how it looked. Then put the dough in the refrigerator for at least 8 hours, but up to 72 hours. When you're ready to bake, grab the dough from the fridge and pour it onto the kitchen counter. Don't let it come up to temperature. Divide the dough into 2 equally sized pieces. Shape each piece into a loose ball with your bench scraper. Then let the dough rest for 20 minutes to relax the gluten. Now I'm going to show you how to shape your dough into a round bread, a so-called boule, and into a cigar-shaped bread called a batard. The boule is easier for a beginner. The batard is a more common bread shape and will give slices that are more the same size. To shape a boule, do as follows. Invert the pre-shaped dough onto the counter. Using your scraper, pull each side out and fold in over the dough. Then invert the dough again. Put the scraper behind the ball and pull it forward to make the front of the dough get pulled underneath the ball. Keep going until you have a taut ball. Then invert the dough into your Banneton. I used lined Bannetons. If yours aren't, you need to spritz them with water and flour it with rice flour, so you're certain that the dough doesn't stick. To shape a batard, do as follows. Flour the top of the dough with AP or bread flour. Remove any excess flour from the counter. Invert the pre-shaped dough onto the counter. Gently pull on the dough to make it into a flat square. Then fold the bottom of the dough up about halfway. Then fold the right side about halfway in over the dough. Then fold the left side all the way over. Lastly, fold the top of the dough down and tuck it in at the sides. Then stitch the dough to create more tension on the top of the dough. First the top, then the middle, and then the bottom. Then roll the dough up and pull it across the counter to make it come together. Roll it over and put it into the Banneton. Then turn on your oven to 260 degrees Celsius, 500 degrees Fahrenheit, with a baking steel and a Dutch oven inside. Let it heat for an hour. When the hour's up, grab the first dough. Dust the bottom of the dough so it doesn't stick to the peel. Flip it onto the peel. Dust the top with rice flour for a cool look. Then score the bread. Put the bread into the Dutch oven. I'm using the Challenger bread pan, but you can use whatever you have available. Add the lid to the top. Bake for 20 minutes. When the 20 minutes are up, remove the lid and turn down the oven to 230 degrees Celsius, 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Bake for another 20 to 25 minutes until the bread is to your liking. Take the bread out of the oven and let it cool on a wire rack. Bake the other bread the exact same way. Let's do a crumb reveal. That's a very nice crumb. And this one looks great as well. Now all there's left is look at some gorgeous pictures of this bread.
Don't they look great? The crust is crispy, the crumb is soft, and the taste is awesome. If you want to bake awesome bread, but you don't want to keep a sourdough starter, this is your recipe. Or maybe, like me, you've been baking sourdough for quite a while and want to shake things up. My skills in baking are much improved than when I used to bake yeast-based bread weekly. I'm sure yours have too. This is your recipe as well. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.